Well, good Monday morning. A word of encouragement to you. Many of you are very confused at the crashing of the models for this coronavirus. The talk of two different strains of this virus, and there definitely are two different strains of this virus. And many of you are confused about, well, is it really just the flu? Is it worse? I don't have those kind of answers because that data is still being crunched. And this is what gives us some unsettled feeling because the data keeps changing and people will start saying, well, they're making this up as they go along, or this is some conspiracy, or this is some way for power grabs to take place. Because human beings are involved, there's always going to be the possibility that they are going to use any crisis for a power grab, or to make themselves look bigger, look better, look smarter. That self-aggrandizement, we're very good at that as human beings. Even ministers are not immune to this. And if we're honest, we've all seen it in other ministers, and I've seen it in myself more than once. We have to be very careful that we don't dismiss science merely because it keeps changing, because that's what science is supposed to do. Before we had iPhones take away most of the major work of our laptop and desktop computers, we used to buy a new computer knowing that by the time we got it home, it was out of date. It was really that fast of changing. That has slowed somewhat because we have seemed to agree upon a couple of different systems and formats and delivery vehicles. It'll change again, though. There are things coming down the road, but here's the point. It changed. Science used to believe that there was a human ancestor called the Piltdown Man, but they looked at it and said, that's not right. This is a fake. They changed. Now, some people still bring up the Piltdown Man to say, see, scientists don't know anything. No, they do. That's why they know they were wrong and made a correction. Science is a river. It is always moving. It is fed by many streams. It is somewhat predictable. We know its flow, but like all rivers, it will very often surprise us. So how should a Christian deal with this? Is this a matter of faith versus science or science versus faith? No. If you're good at science, you're not anti-faith. And if you're good at faith, you're not anti-science. They are, as Stephen Jay Gould used to say, non-overlapping magisteria. In other words, they cover different areas. And that covering different areas is important. If you were to ask a scientist who is very strictly going to remain within the rules of science and say, if I were to climb on top of my house and leap off and flap my arms vigorously, would I fly? The real scientific answer to this is, I don't think so. It's not no. It is, the data doesn't seem to support that effort on your part. Now that sounds really weird to us because most of us would look at each other and go, no, dude, you're going to fall down. That doesn't work. Because in science, you are limited. You don't say things are impossible. Most of the time, you don't even give odds. Instead, you merely say, this is what we've observed. This is what is repeatable. That's all I can stay and that's all I can say. And this is why sometimes doctors Fauci and Birx can be very upsetting to people because they will be asked to make predictions or to speak about the economy or to speak about timetables, and it's not scientific for them to answer in the way all of us would like for them to answer. And so they'll say something like, well, this virus could be around for another 2 months, 18 months, whatever. And we all get terrified, not understanding that they're not saying we can't go back to work, and they're not saying that most of us are not going to be just real fine. They're just answering your question. Is this virus going to be a problem come again this fall? Yes. Well, what kind of problem is it going to be? Well, we don't know, but you're sure it's going to be? Yes. They're answering the best they can, and that frustrates the rest of us. I get it. They're very, very good in their field, but we need to remember that we're all good in our field, but we're not really good outside of it. So find your field. Find your lane, as some business executives like the power speakers at these conventions. So we'll talk about finding your lane. You will, if you talk to any of our staff here at Fourth Avenue and you talk to any of the shepherds, you will know that one of the things I do is ride very hard. Stay in your lane. Know what you know. Work with what you've got. Let the experts do the other thing. Therefore, I don't tell Robin and Devin, I don't tell Evan, I don't tell Dean, I don't tell Laurie, I don't tell any of them how to do their jobs. They're experts. That's their lane. They're doing very well. Stay in your lane. And your lane is a person of faith going through a crisis. I get that. But can I give you a picture that might help you somewhat? And we'll wrap this up because you're busy. I know that. Science is a river fed by many streams, always moving. If I wrote a book on the scientific reasons why I believe that there is a God, it would be out of date very shortly after publication. That's why I much prefer to speak to people than to write, because I can tell them this is what I know now. This is where I am now. But religion is different. Some people say, oh, religion, you're just believing old stories. Yeah, it's a lot more than that. Religion is a tree. It puts roots down by the river, and the river feeds it. But it is not the river, and it is different than the river. And it does not move on constantly changing as the river does. It does, however, change. It grows. It puts down roots where you cannot see, and then it grows a little wider, little larger in circumference, and grows toward heaven. And as it does so, it changes. It goes through seasons. Seasons of plenty, seasons of death and dormancy, but it always gets its breath again and moves again. One of the reasons why we're not terribly worried when the world hits the pause button is because we serve a God who came back from death, and his church has always come back from death. Throughout the centuries, it has been ruled out and it's all gone and it's over, and it comes back. Why? It's a tree. It's not a weed. It's not the river. The old expression is that you cannot step in the same river twice. All that means is rivers change, and whenever you put your foot in it again, it's a whole different set of water. But you can climb the same tree. You can live in that tree because that tree is a solid. When you are confused, a good rule of thumb, do not exchange a solid for a liquid as your foundation. There are so many that will say, I don't need God, I have science. And I look at them and say, you have no idea what science is. Science moves. You're going to be a leaf in the middle of a river and the floodwaters are bouncing you all over it. That's what you want for your eternal security? I don't think so. You certainly want that river. You want the nourishment from it. You want the water from it, the blessing of the river. I love science. I love that I have medication when I'm ill. I love that I have lights on whenever it's dark. I love science. I'm fed by science. But I live in a place that is solid ground, the tree. Now, I can still love science and choose to base my life on a solid, not a liquid. And if you're thinking, wow, I've never heard that before, I gotta admit, almost everything I say, I've either gotten from others in life or from a great old book. Just gonna read the first Psalm, and I want you to read it this week and think about this some. Blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, or stand in the way of sinners, or sit in the seat of mockers. Be very careful, people on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Don't be a Psalm 1:1 person. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. Here we go. He is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever he does prospers. Not so the wicked. They're like the chaff that the wind blows away. Therefore the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish. It's all right to be concerned, but perfect love of God casts out fear. Let us not be a leaf rushed down a river. Let us not trade away our solid for liquid. Let science inform us, let it change, but we are fed by the Spirit of God. We are a tree that will continually grow upwards, reaching up our branches, our arms, our hearts, our prayers to our God. Have a better week than you'd planned to have.